Okay, so there are quite a few things that you'll need to make these little lamps. You'll have some sandpaper, some fabric if you want that to go over the cardstock. The cardstock is, of course, for the little lampshade. So you'll need cardstock and the fabric. This is 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters, and it was just a big stick of balsa wood, and that's what I'm using for the lamp base. Some seed beads are the smallest beads that you can find. It doesn't matter what color they are, it's going to be up to you. Whatever paint you want the base to be, if you're even going to do it, or some clear, your paintbrush, various glues, a lot of different glues, your measurement, cutting utensils, and of course, some tweezers and things like that. Believe it or not, there are no toothpicks involved. However, I do suggest a sewing pin, one of these puppies. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do is go ahead and cut this. You want to cut this at 1 centimeter. So exactly 1 centimeter is what you'll need. It is balsa wood, so I found that I had to just kind of, wiggle this back and forth until I got down to the bottom. Because if I tried to use a clip, then it just, with such a small piece like this, it just kind of crumbled. But once you get that cut, then go ahead and try to sand that as flat as possible. And sand the sides a little bit and get that all nice so that the lamp will sit properly. Once you get your little centimeter cut off here, at that point in time, what you can do is paint your piece. And let me show you. So here are 3 different versions that I did because I wasn't really sure, exactly what color lamp I wanted. And so for this one, I just did a lot of priming and did quite a few layers of black paint and then a nice clear coat on this. And so I got kind of almost a ceramic look for that one. This one is covered in a metal, like an aluminum tape. And I have that in the description. It's this stuff. And I got that, I think, off of Temu, and it's just this sticky, like, aluminum foil type stuff. So I did one, I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. But you can just, if you want a more traditional look, then just put a nice clear coat on one of the, just leave it the balsa wood, and you'll get a nice grain. In real life, of course, that grain would be gigantic, but it still looks kind of nice from this scale. So anyway, putting that pin in the middle is actually important because let me see, I'm going to choose this one. Putting the pin in the middle like that, try to get it as close as possible, by the way, to the middle. It helps you, of course, to paint this. This is very nice. But also, you need to have a hole that goes all the way through, okay? You're going to make sure your pin comes out the base as well, whatever you want your base to be, because that's where we're going to thread the electric later on, okay? So you go ahead and paint that, and while that is drying and out of the way, then we can go ahead and cut for the little lampshade. And the lampshade cuts are going to be, I'll write this down for you. So this big piece here, this is your 3.6 by 0.7. Okay, so that's the shade itself. But then you're going to need a piece that actually will kind of hold the shade on the base here in a minute. And this little guy is, he's only 0.6 by 0.3. You could even go smaller, but I found that it starts to get a little bit difficult when you go to put all of this together if you go any smaller than that. So you want to go ahead and cut those, okay? Just cut those out of your cardstock. When you're finished with that, you're going to go ahead, and if you want fabric for this, then make sure that whatever glue you choose, make sure that it's going to be nice and clear. All right, when that dries. Now, if I use this is my favorite craft glue from the dollar store. I know, of course, that it's going to glue very, very clear. And I want you to be very generous with how much glue you put around the edges. You know, even if you get it on the other side a little bit, that's fine. Just kind of even it out and around, because what's going to happen here, put this down. When you put your fabric, don't cut the fabric first. Go ahead and lay the fabric down on here as straight as possible. Like so. Try to be aware of the green and make sure that that's glued all the way to the edge real well. And even if you've got to add more glue, like this clear glue, it would be no big deal to add another layer of glue. Now, what we're going to do is let that dry really, really well. Okay, if you start to see that it's coming up in the edges, like right here, you can go ahead and put on some extra glue and then wait for that. Okay, so we're going to wait for this to dry. Okay, I think this is pretty good here. I'm going to take nice sharp scissors, and what I can do, because I have a very gauzy fabric, is I can really tell where the grain is easily. But just either way, gauzy or not, turn this over and cut very carefully along the edge at this point. Now I have you do this second instead of just going ahead and like cutting a piece of fabric and gluing it to the top of that, because you have a little more control over the edges if you turn this upside down. So I don't know if you can tell, like, but I'm able to tell easier this way if I need to trim, if I do this upside down. And it comes out nice and straight, and I can just cut really carefully along there. Now, when I'm finished cutting this, I might want to go back and add even more clear glue along the edges. So I did a fabric hacks video once, and I talked about using your glues, especially like your tacky glues in many cases, on the edges of fabric. It'll glue down anything that has frayed, and it'll keep things from fraying more. Next thing is simply going to go ahead, and you want to go ahead and roll this. Now, I found this pen to kind of help me, and it's less frustrating if I have something round to kind of get this started, you know, like that. It helps. It's so small that it's hard to get like your finger or something in there, but you could if you have small hands. So all I'm going to do is just glue these ends together, and then I'm going to be ready for what holds this on, and it's this little slice that holds it onto the lamp itself. Okay, that looks pretty good. And so go ahead, put that down, go ahead and get your little piece. And what I want to do, and you may have to adjust the size of this, is I want to glue it just inside, like almost just right on the top, but inside the lip. I don't want it to stick out, and I also don't want it down in more. I don't want to do it down in here. I want to do it right on the edge. And the reason for that is, well, for one thing, I'm doing a white shade, so it's definitely going to show if my little mount is down farther. Okay, I'll get a shadow in there. But also, it's just, you don't need that much strength to hold this lampshade on. It's so tiny. Okay, so I've got this on here. Let's make sure that that's on there real well. Yeah, not so much on this one side. I'll need more glue on there, but meanwhile, let me show you. Okay, so now put it down. You've got your support, put that down toward the board, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look down in the middle here, and I'm gonna take one of my pins that I have. How about this one that's right here, convenient? And I want to punch a hole in the paper of that support as close to the middle as possible, because what I'm about to do is actually kind of put the, let me see here. So we'll put these wires and we'll just sort of lead those down through the hole here, through the seed bead, and then into the lamp. So I need something that's going to kind of hold this all together, like as if it were a light bulb holding this on. So I want to try to do that as close to the middle as possible. And I had, as you noticed, kind of this little piece of scrap balsa, and it is very helpful for something like this, where I need to puncture this. Okay, not too bad. It's coming off there. So where I need to puncture, okay, and I need to make sure I have a really good hole for that. I'm gonna have to glue this back again in a minute. So I've got that ready to go, and I've got my light ready to go. Let's go ahead and put this all together. Okay, so first thing, your wires right down in here. That's okay. And you'll push it all down. See, it's like your little light bulb in the middle there. Then what I can do, pull that, kind of get that out of my way. Then what I can do to sort of have this come together a little better, have this solidify a little bit better, is I'm actually going to use just the tiniest bit of tacky glue in here. I don't need a lot, but it's going to help hold this seed bead on. And so now we take this and we are patient, and we're going to run this through here. All right, you've got that. Okay. I have a little more glue than I needed, so I can just dab that off of there. Okay, next step is to get whatever you decided and go ahead and run your wires down. Okay, if you had a little extra glue on there, that's fine. If you didn't, go ahead and maybe put a little bit now on the other side of the seed bead, sorry. Just a little bit. So that you can go ahead and pull this on here. And don't pull too hard. Okay, But what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to decide what side am I going to make the front of my lamp. I suppose this side is just as good as any. So if that's the front, then what I want to do is adjust my lamp shade and straighten that out and move your seam to the back, just like you would if you had that in your house, okay? So now basically I would wait and let this dry a little bit more, okay? What you can hopefully see it from the side here is that the seed bead is where that light bulb would be on a real lamp. So it would be the little part, the little socket that you would screw the light bulb into. What it does is it gives enough space between the support on the shade and the base of the lamp so that it looks real. Now, if you really wanted to get adorable about this, you could also make like a little pull chain for this, and you could have like a little tiny pull chain on there. I didn't make one because I don't think I have a bead quite small enough that I could do that, but you could probably figure out a way to do that easily. Once it's, a little drier maybe, what I want to do, okay, now I've got this bottom. One of the great things about using the balsa wood for this is I can just take my knife, and I could do this before right now, it doesn't really matter when I do this, and just make myself a little space here. Just kind of carve out a tiny little place where I can kind of slide my wires into. And if I do that, I'll just use my fingernail to kind of put it in there. Okay, readjust. Then what can happen is that when you go to glue this down to the table or the desk or whatever, then it'll glue nice and flat. Now it's sort of hard to demonstrate that and hold this down, but if I do that well, then this will be much flatter. See if you can see it that way. So at this point in time, if I'm going to paint these, because I know that my wires are going to show, my suggestion to you is that you go ahead and put like a little bit of clear glue. I liked this glue. And if I put a little bit of clear glue and kind of twist these a little, then it'll be way easier for me. I don't have to twist a lot. It'll be way easier for me to actually paint these. Here's your little finished product. I also noticed that if you didn't want to light this, you could use the sewing pin that I was talking about, and the top of the sewing pin actually sort of looks like a little light bulb. So you could put your sewing pin in there and then nip it off at the bottom, and that would be really cute. So anyway, thank you for watching, and please subscribe.